Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Virginia Committee of the Whole meeting. As you can see, we are all attempting to practice social distancing as a result of the COVID-19 requirements set forth by the Center for Disease Control and the Minnesota Department of Health. We have a couple of announcements to make before we start. We'll make the announcements first. As the City Council, we'll all make this announcement first, and then we'll move on to the special council meeting to adopt a resolution on a couple items, and then move on to the committee of the whole meeting directly following. So first and foremost, the City of Virginia, the City Council and the staff would like to share some facts about COVID-19 and what the City of Virginia is doing. A press release has been sent out to and community members and put on every social media that we can possibly think of. But at the same time, we want to make sure we reiterate what the city is doing and some facts and figures that we've been asked to share with you as a result of that. So first of all is that fact number one is that diseases can make anyone sick regardless of their race or ethnicity. So fear and anxiety about COVID-19 can cause people to avoid or reject others even though they are not at risk for spreading the virus. So let's remain calm. For most people, the immediate risk of becoming seriously ill from the virus that causes COVID-19 is thought to be low. Older adults and people of any age with underlying health conditions such as diabetes, lung disease, or heart disease are at greater risk of severe illness from COVID-19. Someone who has completed quarantine or has been released from isolation does not pose a risk of infection to other people. For up-to-date information, visit the Center for Disease Control website or the CDC's website for coronavirus disease and the 2019 webpage. There are simple things that you can do to help keep yourself and others healthy. You've heard this many times before, but we would like to reiterate this to you. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing, going to the bathroom before eating and preparing food. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Stay home if you are sick or you feel ill. Take these precautionary measures just in case. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue, then throw the tissue in the trash. You can help stop COVID-19 by knowing the signs and symptoms: fever, cough, shortness of breath. Seek medical advice if you develop any symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live in or recently have been in an area with the ongoing spread of COVID-19, please consult your physician. And if there are any questions or comments about that, please contact your physician. Make a telephone call. They'll give you the instructions on if they want you to do an e-visit or however that's going to work out to help you determine your signs and symptoms. So those are some of the recommendations that you've heard many times before, hopefully. And so in response to COVID-19 and the direction by the Center for Disease Control and the recommendation by the President of the United States and the issuance of the declaration of emergency by the governor, the City of Virginia is taking the following steps. As this COVID-19 pandemic continues, we want to provide you, the citizens of Virginia, with an update on the coronavirus national emergency and our city's response to this situation. This is a rapidly evolving situation. We are monitoring the COVID-19 continually and have staff in consulting with federal, state, and county resources on this on a regular basis. After consultation with our department heads, we are jointly issuing the following guidelines. The fire department. The fire station is closed to the general public until further notice. Please call 218-748-7520 or email virginiafire@virginiamin.us if you have any general questions. If this is an emergency, do not hesitate to call 911. The police department. The police department general offices are closed to the public until further notice. Please call the non-emergency number to this police department, area code 218-748-7510, or email vpd@virginiamin.us if you have any general questions. Otherwise, once again, if this is an emergency or you have a question that, of anything that's considered to be non-emergency or you consider to be an emergency, do not hesitate to call 911. The Virginia Public Library. The library will remain open until 6 p.m. Tuesday, March 17th. That's today. The library will be closed from March 18th through March 27th. That could be extended based on the circumstances as they evolve. During this closure, we encourage all patrons to utilize our online resources. Do not hesitate to call the library at area code 218-748-7525 if you have questions about online services. Feel free to use the outside book drops for any items you need to return. All the events scheduled through March 31st have been canceled. This library will reevaluate the future events on an ongoing basis. And if you have fines that are, books that have to be returned, if you're unable to return them in the box that's provided, bring them back in and we will waive those late fees once library is restored to order and open for business. Park and Recreation. All private events scheduled at the city park facilities, that includes the Miners Memorial Building, Klein Cupoletti, and all other spaces, will be held to the posted occupancy loads. Events of any size should only be continued if they can be carried out with the adherence to the guidelines for protecting vulnerable populations, hand hygiene, and social distancing. When feasible, organizers could modify events to be virtual. But again, no city offices or no city events will be held or authorized in our public facilities. All city-owned athletic facilities are closed to the public until further notice. This includes, once again, the Miners Memorial Building and the Tennis for All facility. Engineering and zoning. Effective yesterday, we will suspend all non-emergency inspections. We realize this places a burden on the steam conversion and may set that back. But because of the ongoing pandemic and the issuance by the governor and his staff and their guidelines established by the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health, we must take this drastic measure. So please be patient. I know I've received calls from contractors, many others as well, and they want to start these steam conversions. In order to do so, they need to have an inspection before they can pull the permit. Unfortunately, we have to take these steps until further notice. Public Works. City curbside recycling are stopped until further notice. You may deposit recycling at our 24-hour drop off-site located at the corner of 15th Avenue West and 20th Street, in the Ridgewood area. Garbage service will remain operating as normal. This may change if the situation dictates. Virginia Public Utilities. The Virginia Public Utilities main offices are closed to the public until further notice. Any patrons who need emergency assistance are encouraged to call the Virginia Department of Public Utilities at area code 218-748-7540. The Public Utilities request that all customers utilize the drop box outside the building for any payments. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments related to this or any other question for the Minnesota Department of Public Utilities, you can use 748-7540, 748-7540 by calling them at that number, or you can visit their website, which is www.vpuc. That's www.vpuc.com for online bill pay or any other questions. Essentia Health. Essentia Health continues to closely monitor and work with community partners. Effective today, which was yesterday, visitor restrictions are in effect. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to call Essentia Health at 1-833-494-0836. That is 1-833-494-0836. Or you can visit their free online website, which is essentiahealth.org. That's essentiahealth.org. All patients who have symptoms of illness are encouraged to start with a free online visit to do e-visit first for an evaluation. This will lessen the burden of visits to the emergency room and to the urgent care center. The City Council. All commission meetings are canceled until further notice. City Council meetings will be conducted and will remain open to the public, but we encourage all to watch the meetings on either YouTube, online at www.mesabacommunitytv.com, or on Mediacom Channel 5. While we are doing our part as a city to ensure the health and safety of all, we ask all community members to do their part as well. The best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to this virus. The city takes this very seriously, as do other communities throughout the Iron Range, the state of Minnesota, and the United States. Things that you can do as a community member, which we ask you to do right now. We are in the level 1, maybe level 2 area. Fortunately, we have no confirmed cases of COVID-19 in St. Louis County. Essentia Health, St. Luke's, and other healthcare facilities continue to monitor and test to determine whether a case comes to being. As of this morning, there has not been one reported or confirmed. Please remain calm. Wash your hands often and thoroughly. Practice social distancing. Keep at least 6 feet away from others and stay home when possible. Stay home if you are sick or expect to get medical care. Cover coughs and sneezes. Wear a face mask only if you are sick. Only if you are sick. Clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces daily, and the city has implemented those steps in all areas of the city in order to try to accommodate the best we can and sanitize on a daily basis all things that can considered to be exposable, or you would be exposed to. This includes tables, doorknobs, light switches, countertops, handles, desks, phones, keyboards, toilets, faucets, and sinks. And also, really, if you're at the gas station, the gas hose that you use is also an issue for disease and virus, whether it's the flu or whatever. So keep that in mind as you gas up or go to the store. For more information about the COVID-19, please use the following resources. First, Center for Disease Control, which is the CDC fact sheet. That is at www.cdc.gov/coronavirus/2019 non-cov/download/2019 ncov factsheet.pdf. Now that's a long thing. You just go to the website, they'll direct you right to that. Also, the Minnesota Department of Health guidelines, which is www.health.state.mn.us. And they'll get you to that too. That's once again, that's the Minnesota Department of Health, which is www.health.state.mn.us. This is an ever-changing protocol. We will continue to take any necessary steps recommended by the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health and the state of emergency mandates by the governor of the state. And we'll do our best to keep you informed as this situation evolves. So thank you. This is on behalf of the mayor and the city council and the staff of the city of Virginia. So thank you for everybody for our input and moving forward in an attempt to try to mitigate as much as we can this pandemic that's been declared by our president. Okay, let's move to the following special meetings will be held Tuesday, March 17th in the city council chambers. We have a special council meeting that we're moving forward with this, and there are 2 items on the agenda for this meeting, and I'll call this meeting to order at 9:12 a.m. Today's date is Tuesday, March 17th, 2020. And at this point in time, I would like you to take the roll call, if you would, please, Chris.
Councilor Friedrich?
Absent.
Councilor Barbu?
Present.
Councilor Yondich?
Present.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
Kelly?
Here. Present, thank you. We have a quorum. So item 1 on the special meeting notice is a requirement with respect to the general obligation bond finance for the Virginia MEC project. This is required for us to be able to access the $12 million that was allocated by the state legislature. Number 1 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the First Amendment to the grant agreement and restrictive covenant declaration for the general obligation bond financed by the Virginia MEC project. It's a rather long and lengthy rendition. This is common practice when using bond money from the state of Minnesota to access these funds for a specific project. In this particular case, we're using it for the MEC design. This is a grant agreement The grant agreement, of course, is the grant money that we're getting on $12 million, and there's a restrictive covenant to that. If anybody has any questions or concerns about that, maybe we could refer that to our city attorney, Brian. He can kind of give you just a brief perspective. Could you do that, Brian, for us?
Good.
Okay, I don't think it's necessary to do so, but in case the council has questions about it, a specific question.
Correct, and I'd be happy to try and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking forward to move forward, but before, does the council have a question, or would you like to make a motion, Councilor Johnson?
To clarify, the $12 million is specifically for the construction, and that is it. That's the purpose of this resolution, is to identify we won't be using that $12 million for demolition or anything like that. It is specifically for the building of the actual complex. Is that correct?
The clarification that you're asking for, that is correct.
Okay. I would so move the resolution to comply with the grant agreement and the restrictive covenant.
A motion by Councilor Johnson to move forward to adopt this resolution authorizing it. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The second item on the agenda for the special council meeting is to adopt a resolution designating the emergency management coordinator and the deputy emergency management coordinator. And in accordance with our emergency operations protocol and our procedure and our policy, there are designated representatives in certain times of crisis and national emergencies. And depending upon the circumstances surrounding that, we as a city council and the mayor would recommend an individual to be the emergency management director of a specific crisis, this being a health crisis. In discussion with our city administrator, I am recommending to the city council for consideration and appointment of our chief of the fire department, Alan Lewis, as our emergency management coordinator for this pandemic and moving forward with the COVID-19 as this evolves, and the secondary assistant or secondary assistant coordinator would be the assistant fire chief, Mr. Frederickson. So is there a motion?
Approve that recommendation.
Motion by Councilor Friedlieb to approve the recommendation appointing Chief Lewis and Assistant Chief Frederickson as the emergency management coordinators for this pandemic crisis, issued by the governor, supported by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. There's no other items on the agenda to come before the special council meeting. So unless there's any other questions or comments about these two items on the agenda, I will move to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Beyondich, supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Special meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Let's move on to the committee of the whole meeting. I will call this meeting to order at 9:19 a.m. in the council chambers of the City Hall of Virginia, Minnesota. And first of all, we have a full agenda today. I think we'll be able to get through this rather expeditiously. I know there's some things that we need to discuss here. So first of all, we'll start with appearances. And we had some appearances that we asked to be moved to the April 7th or another meeting in order to accommodate social distancing and the issues with respect to COVID-19. And so those individuals have been moved, those presenters have been moved to the April 7th committee of the whole meeting. But we have today before us Jenna Bellinger from Essentia Health regarding the tobacco challenge. Jenna, would you please turn on your microphone and please state your name for the record and welcome to the committee of the whole meeting.
Yep, my name is Jenna Ballinger. I work for Essentia Health and Community Health in Virginia. And today I wanted to tell you about our Tobacco Quit Challenge that we do every year. I have a couple of documents. If you want to see them, I'll have them for you, but I'll just kind of explain the three sections. All right. So every year, Essentia does a Tobacco Quit Challenge for our employees. But last year, we decided to expand it and create kind of a document for our community partners and any other organizations who are interested. So for this purpose, I'm talking about the City of Virginia employees. So the challenge is 4 weeks long. And time to need to implement is 6 to 8 weeks. You need at least a week ahead of time-ish to be able to register employees for it. Usually registration is in the month of March, and then the suggested launch date would be April 1st. So all employees who use tobacco will be eligible to participate. Registration is recommended to open up in March to allow enough time for people to prepare for a quit in April. You can utilize the online tools such as SurveyMonkey or a paper sign-up for employee sign-up. So your responsibilities for this, if you decide to do it, are basically a registration tool and then a grand prize if you so wish to do so. For example, Essentia gives a cash prize at the very end of this for the person who is the most successful, and kind of pull that out of a hat kind of thing. But it would be your choice on how you want to do that. We provide sample registration questions, pre-assessment questions, which I gave to you in one of those documents, a promotional flyer, weekly newsletters and email blast with key messages or topics and outlined action steps, suggested weekly engagement questions for prizes, and a post-challenge survey questionnaire as well. So if you register, which I would give you the registration link, the City of Virginia would go in, put in your information, and then from there, we would send you weekly updates that you could then send out to the employees who signed up. So usually it's via email. And it's basically free unless you decide to do a prize. We try to make it minimal, a minimal budget. Basically, all you need is communication support and that registration tool. So to set it up, obviously you need leadership approval, determine challenge start and end dates, and determine registration process, send out announcements, make sure everyone's registered, send weekly emails with key topics, send out a post-challenge survey, and then complete our outcome survey for Essentia. So it's fairly simple. Each week is separate. So week 0, finding out your why, benefits of quitting. Week 2 is dealing with withdrawal. Week 2, additional stress management techniques. Week 3, relapse prevention. And week 4, stay quit action plan. A few of the organizations that have done this in the past, last year, did weekly prizes as well, just to encourage employees to quit. Obviously, right now, kind of the big topics in rural areas tends to be e-cigarette usage and chewing tobacco, which both are addressed in this. So I don't know what your rate of tobacco use is among your employees, but we've had very good success in the past. The city of Duluth does this, and they've been pretty successful. And then Detroit-Riemann did it last year as well in Hibbing. And so that's kind of the basics of this. I do work with the ALA, American Lung Association, and they are willing to provide any help and support if you need it, and more information on e-cigarettes or any type of tobacco. So that's what I have for you today. So do you have any questions?
Thank you. I think, this is something that's, if it's involving our employees, it should immediately be studied and reviewed and documented and recommended by our Human Resources Director as we deal with our employees through our city administrator about what are the privacy issues, those kind of things, and gravitate through that. I guess we're looking, probably you're asking for a motion for us to move forward to investigate this, to allow our employees, for our staff to investigate this, to determine whether or not the employees, can participate in this, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Johnson?
That's what I was going to ask Sherry, is if there's something that we would be able to look at. Do you have the time and resources at this time to look at this?
Sherry?
Councilor Johnson, yes, I did see Jenna's email earlier, and I think it's a good thing. We have a couple departments that we'd actually get a 10% reduction in our workman's comp if they were 90% tobacco-free. So, yeah, financially, it does benefit the city, and then physically, it benefits the employee.
With that, then I'd move to direct staff to work with Jenna and appropriate people to move forward with the program for the wellness of the city.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? It's free. Okay, thank you. No discussion? Anything else you'd like to add before we vote?
Thank you very much, and I hope I can provide as much support as you need.
Well, thank you for coming in. Thank you for offering this program. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Matt, are you representing Beth Kunkel from Kimberly Horn? I think they've canceled as a result of some of the things that are going on, or is she here? Okay. Would you please notify Bill Hannes, Sherry, and have him come up to talk about this in the interim move to, okay, thank you. So do we have representatives from the Blendon-sponsored LT Broadband Facility Study Task Force here? Oh, Bill, come on in. Thank you. Yeah, well, we're at item number 2, with you're representing the city with respect to the Beth Kunkel Kimberly Horn regarding the determination of a need for an environmental impact study. Bill, good morning.
Morning. Beth sends her regards, but of
Which-
course with everything going on.
No, press the button. Green.
Green
You're
is
ready.
go?
Thank
Okay.
you, Bill.
Beth sends her regards, but with everything going on, of course, they decided not to come up. Before you is our finding of need for an environmental impact study for the school project. You were given the EAW back in January. That went through all the normal channels for advertising. It came back with just 2 minor comments, one from the Minnesota DNR, the other one from the MPCA. Those have been answered satisfactorily. And at this time, we're asking the council to adopt the resolution to basically that an EIS, an environmental impact statement, will not be required for this project.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I will also move that recommendation from our staff and from the studies that have been done on this.
Good news, no environmental impact study necessary. Thank you. A motion by Councilor Baraboo to move forward. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. You're not here for the Blendon-sponsored LT broadband, are you?
I don't think so.
No. Thank you, Bill. Do we have representatives from the Blandon Broadband Study Feasibility Task Force regarding the 2 items that are being requested? One is to request to approve entering into agreement with the NEO Partners for Design Study Services Agreement, and item B, the request to approve entering into a contract with NEO Connect for professional consulting services. So the costs associated with that would come from who? Sherry?
Grant.
The grant. So, the request here today is to approve entering into this agreement, which will be grant funded. Okay, so do you want separate resolutions for A and B? We do. Okay, so has everybody have a chance to review their packet and take a look at the application with respect to that? We're entering in the agreement to move forward with this, but it is with grant money and not funds from the city of Virginia. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns, or would like to make a motion before we move forward? Councilor Johnson?
Sherry, we've agreed to this a long time ago to be the fiscal agent to this, and this is just one of the steps to move forward, correct? Okay, then I would move entering into the agreement with NEO Partners for the Design Study Service Agreement.
Motion by Councilor Johnson for item 3A. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one
Yes,
question.
Councilor Baraboo.
Sherry, this is the one we contributed the $5,000 to originally, correct? Or is that a different one?
It's actually 3 grants, but 5,000 is part of this whole,
Whole
and
program?
then, yeah.
Okay, so that was what we approved earlier. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Now request for a resolution to approve the entering into the contract for professional consulting services. Counselor Johnson.
I would move that we approve entering into the contract with NEO Connect for professional contract consulting services.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Terry, do we have a total cost on this? Because I see there is a cost on this. Do we have a clue what it, because I see it says 3,500 plus 40 cents per household?
No, I do not have the total cost. They were supposed to be here, but I think they got confused between committee of the whole and council meeting.
Okay. Because I would like to know that cost before we actually approve this. Can we put this on, I don't care, the resolution, okay, would be fine, contingent upon them giving us a cost basis.
And we have to prove it at the council meeting anyway, so by moving it forward from committee of the whole doesn't necessarily mean that it's agreed to in stone.
That's fine then.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you'll get that information for us for the city council meeting next Tuesday. Thank you, Sherry. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion for item 3B, which is the request to approve entering into a contract with NEO Connect for professional consulting services as part of this grant? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 4 under finance, request from Public Works Department for the purchase of a replacement dump truck. Ed, would you please come forward? Ed Alto is our Public Works Director, and Ed has some information regarding this. I know we've had some issues with one dump truck that is no longer operable and another that's in tough shape. So, Ed, morning. Did you want to turn the mic on so we can, thank you very much.
Morning.
Morning, Ed.
This is the replacement dump truck for the one that we had the accident with. We're upgrading a couple of years. We received a check from the insurance company for $13,875. We're purchasing a dump truck for $18,000. So we're getting a dump truck for $4,125. It's a newer truck. It's an upgrade. That's all it is. I need your approval for it.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Barnzelli? Okay, and that's affordable in the budget? Okay, thank you. A motion by Counselor Barnzelli to move forward to approve the purchase request by our Public Works Department for that dump truck, which is used.
Correct.
Right, okay, is there support for that? Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Appreciate it much. Okay, number 5 under finance is the proposed increase for the garbage tipping fees. And unfortunately, as a result of the St. Louis County's imposition of another increase in our tipping fees at the landfill, we need to take a look at making an adjustment to ours in order to accommodate the enterprise fund to keep our garbage service in the enterprise fund viable financially. Sherry, do you have any questions or you have any comments you'd like to share with us with respect to this?
Not a whole lot, it's just that Britt has done extensive research on the increase from last year, and we are behind, so we are going to have to increase the rates.
Yeah, so is there a recommendation as to amount, or is this something for discussion purposes? Okay, so this is for discussion purposes. We'll have to take a look at potentially raising the tipping fees. I think that should be something we should discuss. We could discuss it here, but we need a recommendation based on a projection of where we're at now, where we need to be, and what's the prudent and reasonable and fair way of assessing and what is the suggested increase in rate in order to accomplish us to maintain our viability in the enterprise fund, right? Correct. So do we have a recommendation of what that increase should be? Counselor Bearable?
Yeah, we talked about this, and I called Mark St. Lawrence here when we talked about this originally, when I was upset about the increases, and we do about 5,600 tons through the system a year, which amounted to close to $60,000 increase with the approximate $11 per ton increase. So I don't know whether, I think that's in there close someplace, and we probably should have a little excess for future things that happen. Right now, it seems that the amount of garbage is going up a little bit because people are not recycling as well as they did before when we had the bags. They're just dumping in the cans. We've had a slight increase in tonnage from what I have seen with the records. So, Sherry, there's a couple different recommendations here that additional revenue per year, that line increase in there, and tough to read on the screen, but there's one that's over $60,000. I see kind of in the middle, if I'm reading this right, which would amount to, I believe, a $2 or so increase per month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Sherry?
I think that's about $84,000. Am I right? Or am I reading that wrong?
That would be the additional revenue.
Yeah.
So based upon what Counselor Bearable has and what's in that document, do you have a recommendation, Sherry?
I would recommend $3.
Okay, Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. So what did the county increase their fees to? I guess I'd like to start with what their increase was, and make ours close to that, and then obviously it'll be going up again, so if we cannot increase their fees a year or 2 years out, our fees, but that would be where I would like to start, is what was the original county fee and what did they raise it to?
If I may, Sherry, unless you have it, it was $52, I think, a ton last year in 19, and it went up to $11 basically, Steve, it went up from last year, but that's per ton now. And we're spreading this all over the community between commercial and residential. So Sherry's $3 recommendation, I believe, is the right figure, and it'll give us extra money into 2021.
So the recommended increase as we move forward, Sherry, and to answer Counselor Johnson's question, this increase that we're asked to be considered, I don't think we want to come back. I don't want to come back next year and say we got to increase it again. So, and we don't know what the county's going to do. If they're going to increase again next year, the year after that, yeah, we have no idea what they're going to do. We don't even get any pre-information about what the actual increase is going to be. And that increase came after our budget. So, I mean, I think we need to be more proactive as a city. I mean, we need to direct some letter to the St. Louis County and ask them that if you're going to make these increases, and please determine what the amount is earlier so that we can make an adjustment to our budget if necessary. So now we're behind the 8 ball here. Does that continue to answer your question, Councilor Johnson? You need more clarification there.
I guess I would like to see some actual numbers before I can vote to raise fees $36 a year.
We had those at one time. We were sent those in an email, Steve.
So I guess I would like to see those presented specifically before I can vote. This is nice, and then with the recommendation and how that balances out as we move forward to, then I can do some of my own math and process how do I rationalize to folks, because we just raised rates a while ago and we're doing a bunch of different stuff. So I would like to see that before I make any decisions, if that would be appropriate.
Mayor, may I add one
Thank
more?
you.
May I add
Just-
one more
just
thing?
One more question, if I may. Sherry, if we delay this for a period of time, which is, they might be prudent to do so, so we can get more specific information that some of the councilors have questions about, you know, what our current reserve in the enterprise fund is, and what if we make a decision, we should make a decision soon, but do we have a little bit of a time frame in which to do so?
If you wish, I can have this for next Tuesday's meeting, unless you want to discuss.
Okay, very good, thank you. Councilor Bearable, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, please, and I'm sorry, I should have said this, because with my conversation with Mark St. Lawrence, who is in charge of the environmental services for the county, I chewed him from one end to the other about the lateness of this, and he promised that this would not happen again. And I've also talked to Commissioner Nelson about this puts a crimp in our budgets, and he assured me that they will not do this again. They'll have it in time for our September 30th recommendation for levies and stuff. And I'll make sure, or the mayor, and we'll make sure, we'll send a letter too. I think that's a good idea, Mayor, because there was no excuse for what they did. They had it earlier, but they never finalized it, what the problem was. But Steve, I have no problem if we bring the numbers forward again. But I did follow up on that with those two gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. So we have in your packet some financial information about some of the increases that could be considered by the council. We're continuing to discuss that. I think it's the general consensus here that we get some additional information from you, Sherry, before we can adequately make a decision on what those rates should be, doing the comparisons of what the county had before, what the increase is, what the potential cost for us over time is, and what adjustments do we have to make in order to accommodate this unfunded mandate. You can do that for us? Okay, and we would like that by when? Next council meeting? Councilor Johnson? Councilor Beyondich? We're good for that? Councilor Barnzelli?
Mayor, when we stopped using the blue bag, did the county tell us it wouldn't cost us as much as it was when we were using the bag?
Well, they gave us a rebate on recycling fees moving forward. It wasn't a lot of money. But we still continue to recycle. Whether you use the blue bags or not, recycling is always considered. We still have the recycling program curbside. We still have the recycling program, which is the satellite site. So there's still recycling going on. The blue bags was a method in which to recover some costs to be put into the garbage fund in order to help support the garbage fees. Basically, that's what the blue bag was for. And the theory was back then, when we first put it into place, blue bags was to encourage recycling. We find that initially that did occur, but over time, the less and less people complied with that. And so we had to take the necessary steps. We did that. We made an adjustment to our garbage rates in order to accommodate the loss of the blue bags. But now with the increased costs associated with the tipping fees from St. Louis County, which they've raised it 3 times, now we're at a point where we want to make sure that we maintain our enterprise fund in order for us to continue to utilize that. So any increase in the garbage rates as we consider will go in that enterprise fund, which will be dedicated, specified only for the garbage service that we provide to the citizens in Virginia.
My concern, Mayor, is when we did away with the bags, that helped the homeowners. They didn't have to pay for the bag. Well, now they're getting beat up with this increase.
So the homeowners paid for those bags. When you got them, it was $10.98 a tube. You had to pay that when you
10 or
picked them
20 of
up.
them.
I think you remember in our discussions, Councilor Barnzelli, we discussed this extensively about whether we should get rid of the blue bags or not. One of them is the fair distribution of the cost incurred with the garbage service throughout the city of Virginia and all the residents, because many of them were not complying. many were complying, and the compliance rate started to drop, and we have to determine, how do we recover those fees? Because the purchase of the garbage, blue bags, weren't covering the costs associated with that, so we weighed that, a significant discussion about that, as you recall. We had significant discussion about, what's the best way to go. So we made adjustment to the tipping fees, garbage rates, in order to accommodate, offset the blue bag, loss of any recycling the blue bags. So instead of a percentage of the people complying, now everybody is contributing to the costs associated with the garbage service, which is a more fair way to do it. We can encourage voluntary compliance with the blue bags. Enforcing the blue bags was difficult. It cost us a lot of money. It was a danger to our blight officer who had to dig through the garbage to try to find somebody's envelope, poking themselves with the needles and those kind of things. That just wasn't safe. So we took the prudent approach to maintain a level of safety and to make sure that we can still comply and fulfill the obligation we have on the enterprise fund with without the blue bag. So that's where we're at now. But now we have to look at an increase because the counties increased their tipping fees. So those adjustments have to be made so that we can maintain our garbage service and have enough in the enterprise fund so it doesn't come out of our regular budget.
Thank you.
Does that help you a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, very
May I
good.
add-
Councilor Baraboo.
If you go back in history, Carl, on these tipping fees, the county has raised them in 14, 16, 18, and 20. Every 2 years, they've been raising this tipping fee. The recycling is actually separate from this. This is actually what we throw into the garbage can that they pick up our people from the city and is weighed at the scales. Now, the county has another thing that they promised us a long time ago, and we just need to push them. They have some advertising dollars that they can get. They can put together a brochure for recycling for us to distribute in the future through our public utility bills, and we should push them on that because they've kind of been remiss in that. That's where we need to take a look at and push more recycling to keep these weight that people are throwing in the garbage cans down. So I think we should push that, but that's a whole separate issue.
Okay, so now it has been, do we have a motion moved and supported to move forward with having Sherry provide us information so that we can make an informed decision, or at least discuss it at the committee at the next council meeting? Is there a motion in support or not?
There is a motion.
A motion by Councilor Johnson to have Sherry prepare the necessary information required for us to make an informed decision by Tuesday, the next council meeting. At least we'll have the information for that council meeting. Is there support for that?
I'll support that.
Support by Councilor Freely. Further discussion? Councilor Freely.
I would suggest that the increase should be equal to whatever the incurred costs are to the city for the additional tipping fees that the county has imposed upon us. I don't know that we should go beyond that for any reason. I know there may be financial reasons that I'm unaware of, but if it's $2 that equals that amount that offsets the costs that we incur from the county, I would rather see that than the additional dollar added to that at this point in time.
Yeah, I think that we're looking for a reasonable and prudent increase, as a result of that. So maybe you want to have a buffer, that's fine, but we need to look at that and to have all the information to make that informed decision. Because the key issue is that, if it's anticipated that the county's going to increase their fees again, I don't want to have to come back and then add another increase. So, but I'm with you on what's the reasonable, prudent approach to it, and what's up to and equal to, so we can maintain our balance in the enterprise fund.
So I'm supporting the notion that we move forward with the increase that's necessary to do. We'll determine what that increase should be upon the next meeting when we have that data available to us.
Yeah, we hope to have that by Tuesday. Yes, thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Baraboo.
Just one thing, and maybe some of the new councilors don't understand that this is an enterprise fund that has to break even. We cannot take taxpayer dollars out for coverage of this. We purchase our garbage trucks out of this, et cetera, all the supplies that we need for that service. So we have to make sure that Sherry doesn't go into deficit spending through this fund. That's a requirement under state law. So just remember, and I agree with the mayor, we don't want to be coming back in another year on this. Maybe we should also look at when the next replacement for a garbage truck is, to see if, what we need, to see if it's a year down the road, 2 years down the road, because those things come out of that fund. So we just don't want to go backwards.
Yeah, and on our vehicle replacement schedule for capital equipment, remember last year, we zeroed out all capital equipment purchases. So even though this would come out of the enterprise fund, I think part of that motion, part of the request by all of us is to ensure that we have all that information. What's the scheduled potential for a garbage truck replacement based on the vehicle replacement schedule? Probably pretty quick. No? That's, well, I mean, for the next one. Right. Okay, so that, and then, how much money do we have in the enterprise fund now? How much money did we have the enterprise fund in January of 2019? To show how much money we've expended, has our tipping fees been keeping up with the balance of our enterprise fund to maintain a balance to ensure the need for the new the new dump truck or maintenance on the truck or new garbage cans or whatever needs to come out of that. So all those figures we'd like to have for our next council meeting on Tuesday for consideration. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to go for a request or have any more comments before we move forward? Because it has been moved and supported to have Sherry, our finance director, put those figures together for that next Tuesday's meeting. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Matt, I think you're up next. Approved pay estimate number 4 in the amount of $108,743.94 for the 12th Avenue West improvements. This pay estimate this is apparently not the final payment, otherwise it would say that.
No, this is the last partial estimate that should come before you. The only thing that's still remaining is the retainage, which is about $36,000, I believe. And that will come once we get all the paperwork from the contractor. We'll have that at a future meeting.
Thank you, Matt. And I think just one more comment about that. I think our Public Works Director is looking at it, and I think we'll be talking with you with respect to this project. I know there was a significant cost for the speed limit signs there, the electronic signs. One of them wasn't working very well. We had to take it down. So do you have any information about that, or is this something we'll look at as we move forward with the final portion of it?
Those signs are actually on the 2018 project, not this is from this last season's project. The electronic ones you're talking about?
Yes.
They were from the previous project.
Okay, thank you.
But we can certainly look into that. Mayor, if I could too on this,
Yes,
before I
please.
forget, on
Please
this
do.
application for payment, the agenda item says approved pay estimate number 4, but I don't have the packet because it didn't come through to me because of the size of it, but there also is on pay application number 4, there's a change order in the amount of negative $725 that should be approved prior to approving that pay application as well.
I think at the last city council meeting, we did approve.
Maybe there was, okay.
We did approve the decrease.
Okay, all right.
$725.
Just wanted to make sure we were doing that due process, so, okay.
That's been taken care of, Matt, thank you. We did that, yes, thank you.
Sorry, my bad.
No, we're good. Thanks for pointing that out, make sure we get that taken care of. So you're asking us to approve pay estimate number 4 in the amount of $108,743.94 for the 12th Avenue West Improvement Project.
Also move.
Moved by Councilor Baraboo to approve that pay estimate. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Mayor, I need to excuse myself for 1 minute.
Okay, sure. Okay, Matt, are we on the 2021-23 street project? We'll move down to street and alley. Item number 7. Is he can chime in after. For street and alley, approve the project list for the 2021-2023 street project. Could you just start with that, and then we'll have
Sure.
Councilor Baraboo chime in if necessary, and his committee.
Okay, yep, I can start. So in your packet, I believe you have a, maybe hard to read, maybe not, I don't know, this breakdown of the streets. And you may recall, we've been talking about this for a while now. And the list of streets is basically the same as what you saw previously and what was discussed previously. At the last street and alley committee meeting, street and alley committee meetings ago, there was a request to add Pine Mill Court. So that is included on here. And then at the last street and alley committee meeting, there was some discussion on whether or not we should include Borgen Road at this time as part of this project, primarily because of the uncertainties of what's happening with the school and the likelihood of the timing of when that road might get done versus all the construction traffic that's probably going to beat on that road when they build the school. So it was the recommendation coming out of that committee, and Councilor Baraboo can talk a little more about that if you'd like, but was to remove Borgen Road at this time. Not that that isn't a high priority for the city, but there's no sense in putting in a bunch of money to that road and then having all those construction vehicles beat on that road for 2 years, on a brand new road. We'd be better off waiting until we're all done with the school and then taking a look at Borgen Road maybe as a standalone or maybe a phase 3 down the road of the street project.
And I think that's wise in which to do that. The street and alley, you're doing some proactive work, I think, with respect to that. And I think there's a way to, entering discussions with the school about they're constructing the school. They're using this heavily guarded roadway. The side of the road, there's no shoulder there. It's all dirt or gravel or whatever it is, and that's eroded over time. It erodes every year. This Public Works has to come up there and put new in there, but the bitumen is starting to crack along. It's like big chunks are coming out of it. So to replace Borgen Road during this thing until the school project is done is prudent for us to wait, and maybe we can recover some additional funding with respect to that through that construction season through some other method. Councilor Baraboo, Matt Reed was talking about the 2023 projects, talking about what the priorities are, primarily the removal from that 2023 project to the Borgen Road for a variety of reasons that he articulated to before. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, unless any councilors have objection to the list that was put together. Engineering and Mr. Hennis put that list together based on priorities of, unless Matt explained to you, of ease of doing projects kind of simultaneously together so that we're not jumping all over the city at times. So other than that, we will have follow-up meetings. Probably won't be as quick as we want with this Corona stuff going on because we'll have people there for the meetings, but we will be scheduling more meetings because we have to have feasibility studies, which means people in those blocks got to come in. So we're going to be scheduling as this Corona stuff settles down. We won't call any meetings because there's usually quite a number of people that come to those meetings.
And you'll be coming back with a final recommendation through the street and alley committee, the members out in the council that are on there, along with your SEH consultants and our engineering department and public works moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes, and the feasibility studies have to be all public. We've got stuff to do, more work to do on bonding and et cetera, those type things. We haven't determined where we're going. We've got to approve all that stuff, but we have to do all the feasibility stuff prior to, correct, Bill? Assessments, yeah.
Sure, and rightfully so. Thank you. We need to, may have a motion to approve the list as recommended by our engineering department, our engineering of record, SCH, and our street and alley committee.
Also move, but can I just ask a couple questions?
Please do. You're moved. Is there support? Support by Councilor Beyondich. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
My only question would be is, and I appreciate all the time and effort that goes into prioritizing and inventorying the city streets and alleys. Was there any opportunity for public input, or will there be any feedback opportunity for people to say, like, I like your list, but geez, you missed this, or I'm just wondering, like, was there any resident or public opportunity for them to suggest to us what they thought were priorities as opposed to what we thought were priorities?
Councilor Baraboo?
Basically, no, not at this time, but they do have the opportunity during the feasibility studies on the ones that we've selected. We went through all the streets in Virginia, Ed Alto, myself, and Bill Hennis, 2 years ago now, Bill? and looked at the ones, we took the worst ones that we could find. We went through every street, Midway included, every place there, but during the feasibility studies, comments, people can come in if we've had a couple projects over the year where the people didn't want the street done.
I guess the one question I have is, because I have gotten a phone call on a number of occasions for an issue where there is a concrete barrier around a manhole cover that's lifted and raised that could catch snowplows and so on. I think it's down around Third Street North and Second Avenue-ish. And but my understanding was that that was for public utilities, so I'm just wondering, like, how do we motivate correction and repair of those kinds of things that aren't necessarily the city's issues, but they're the public utilities issues?
They're a danger, and I believe we follow up on those too, don't we, Bill, from engineering to make sure they get repaired?
Normally,
Good. I'm
Okay,
ready to
yeah, thank you,
proceed.
Counselor Freely. Do you have a motion? We do. We have a motion and support to approve the recommendation at this point in time, not that it can't change, of the 21 to 2023 street project as recommended by staff and our public works personnel, our SCH consultant, and our building and grounds, Street and Alley Committee. Any further discussion in that regard? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries, thank you. And now, part of this is item number 8, under Street and Alleys, approves the revised resolution number 19182 for the 2021-2023 street project. You see that resolution in your packet. This is goes hand in hand with item number 1. Councilor Baraboo?
Yeah, this is, I believe, where we've added the additional by Mill Court, correct?
Our list we put together,
Yeah,
just basically discussed, so that we can move forward with Matt putting together the final feasibility studies,
yeah.
and then we can start
Yep. So,
That's correct.
yeah. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution? Number 19182?
Also move, Mayor.
Moved to adopt that resolution by Councilor Baraboo. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Matt, very much. Item number 9, approve the Dream Machines Motor Club's 2020 Fuzzy Dice Cruise Night and the 28th Annual Summer Celebration Car Show. This has been going on at least for decades. I think the letter is in your packet. It's the same request they've always made, some assistance from the city moving forward. We've been a partner with this celebration for years. There has been no change to their request, but they're looking for approval from the council to hold this event. Motion to move the event by Councilor Freely. Is there support? Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, did you have some further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries, thank you. Item 10, Building and Grounds, adopt a resolution authorizing the City of Virginia to make application to and accept funds from the IIIB Residential Redevelopment Grant Program. This is, of course, for Chris, if you would.
So this would be another item for Bill Hennison Engineering with demolition. And there are a few properties that need a resolution. The first one.
Yeah, would you please get Bill? He can, go through these lists. Thank you. Just when you thought you were out, we drag you back in. Please, this will be the We're on item number 10, which is adopt the resolution authorizing the City of Virginia to make application to and accept funds from the IRRB Residential Redevelopment Grant Program. Bill?
Now, this is for the next series of houses that we have for our demolition program. Basically, it's a combination of city-owned houses that we've obtained from the HRA and other venues. I believe there's one schoolhouse, and I believe there is an order house that went through the courts, and we finally got orders on that. So this is just applying for those funds.
Bill, do you need separate resolutions for each building?
Yes.
We do.
We do. So building number 1 is what? Okay, thank you.
Building number 1 is for 117 11th Street South.
I will move the resolution.
All support.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Bear. Move the resolution forward for the funds for grant funding for the IEEE for 117 11th Street South. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Next one is for 230 2nd Street South.
I'll move the resolution.
For 230 2nd Street South, moved by Counselor Johnson.
Support.
Supported by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Next one is for 504 4th Street South.
I'll move the resolution.
504 4th Street South, move the resolution by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Just real quick, I want to ask, like, when we get this grant money, though, is there matching funds that we have to put in for that, or is this essentially cost-free for us?
No, Bill.
On all these projects, the money we get from IRRB pretty much covers our hard costs on them. And then the city pretty much eats just the cost of our people and our machinery.
And we're budgeted accordingly to
Yes.
do all of these demolitions.
And just to let you know, the next one that you'll be considering, the 506, is it? That one is a school building, and subsequently anything that's above and beyond the IRRB cost will be reimbursed from the school system.
Okay, thank you. So once again, the motion and support is for which property?
504.
504 4th Street South, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
The last one is for 506 4th Street South.
I'll move the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Johnson for 506 4th Street South. Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Any further discussion? This is the school one where they'll reimburse above and beyond. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Is that it? Yeah, but I mean,
For the residential, yes.
for the residential, that's all for the residential, right? Okay, so move to item 10.5, adopt a resolution authorizing the City of Virginia to make application to and accept funds from the IRRB Commercial Redevelopment Grant Program for the Ewens Field demo. And we did have a meeting with IRRB with respect to this. Our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, was there, and myself, representatives from our construction manager risk and our DSGW, and we are to apply for that grant funding. Our city administrator has already set the grant application and move forward. We just need a resolution authorizing the city to make this application and submit it so that demo can be done or begin as quickly as possible.
I'd like to make a motion for that resolution, but I'd also like to add that I'd like to see if there are any historical artifacts that are housed in that facility, that they be salvaged in some capacity for potential display in the future.
That is something that is already been done and considered, but I'll defer to our Park and Rec Director to answer that question, Councilor Freely. Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Brian?
The school has already gone through and taken out some of those things before demolition begins. We will go through and remove anything else that we view of historical significance that could be put together in a display. In addition, before the demolition begins, our fire department will be able to do some training at that facility where they need to do some destructive training in a building. So we will be utilizing that for them.
Very good. That's very good. Okay. Was there a motion by Councilor Freely? Was there support? No. Okay. Motion by Councilor Freely and supported by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Brian. All right, we're going to go to personnel and discuss these things. I know that, Scott, you've been back there very patiently waiting. We're just going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. So if we could just recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we took a short recess for a break, and now we're back online. And so we're at this part of the agenda, we're moving to personnel. And under personnel item 11, the ASME Review Committee recommendations, and I think we had a personnel committee looking at these job descriptions as well. Looking at the job descriptions in your packet is the accounting clerk number 3, the lead mechanic, the heavy equipment operator, the library maintenance clerk, the library clerk / media, just a library clerk, the park and rec positions, building maintenance and repairs, and then the letter of understanding with ASME, the lead mechanic. And so just to clarify it with respect to the lead mechanic, as we're reviewing these other descriptions, as you know, Ed Alto was our lead mechanic at one time, and he was taking care of ordering all the trucks, not only for Public Works, but for the utilities, ordering the equipment, the repair work, and all those kind of things. When he was promoted to our Director of Public Works, there is a need to fill that position and to make that lead mechanic role. I think there is an individual there's money where there's to have to post that. So moving forward, so we're looking at that particular thing, and then if you have any questions or concerns about the lead mechanic position, I think we could talk about that as we're looking through the other positions, and we have Scott Duranko from ASME here, works for Public Works, and then we have our City Clerk, Finance Director, and HR Director, Sherry Erickson. So let's talk about that lead mechanic position, which will require a memorandum of understanding with ASME local for the lead mechanic position, which incorporates a small stipend increase to provide these services based upon a contractual agreement. So Sherry, I'll ask for you first. Talk about this lead mechanic position, what your recommendation is, and then if any questions or concerns, we'll have Scott Duranko come up and also give an explanation moving forward. So Sherry?
Thank you, Your Honor. On February 7th, we did meet with the union. They had proposed a new job position called the lead mechanic. As you mentioned before, Ed Alto had been doing the lead mechanic under the team leader. This lead mechanic would oversee day-to-day operations of the shop, including assigning work, ordering supplies, preparing purchase orders, meeting with vendors, budgeting for tools and equipment, determining different specifications for vehicles and equipment, attending open bid openings, and long-term planning of equipment needs. It was a recommendation by the committee, and I was part of that committee, so I do support this, that we have a lead mechanic position, which we would have to post internally first, and it is $2 more an hour, same as team leaders.
And so the question is that that increase in salary can be absorbed in the regular budget of the Public Works Department. Is that correct at this time?
Correct.
Thank you. Scott, would you like to come forward? Scott Duranko, Public Works representative, asked me, local. Scott, any more information you'd like to share with respect to this position?
Tom Hord right now is doing the job. He's ordering all supplies, ordering the trucks, speccing out the trucks, and everything else that pertains to it. And he also is the go-to guy for anything that needs to be done, and then he delegates the work to the other mechanics. And being that we're going to put it up, he is the most senior mechanic there, so chances are he is going to end up getting it. He's going over and above right now with no raise, so that's where we're trying to compensate him a little bit for what he's doing.
Okay, thank you. And of course, this will be an internal posting for all mechanics to apply.
Yep. Correct.
Very good, which is, as Tom has just been assigned to do this at this time by our Public Works
right
Director.
now, correct.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council with respect to that? First, Councilor Bearable, and then on to Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Bearable.
Okay. With this job description, if you have an emergency, somebody gets really sick and stuff in that department, this is a working position also for the head mechanic. Okay, it kind of alludes to it, but doesn't really see that in there.
Oh, it doesn't say it in that?
I don't know, I didn't see that in there, Sherry, in the job description, that in an emergency or a shortage or something, that they, it kind of alludes to it, but do we have to specifically say that, or is this just understood?
In this one here with the red lettering,
Yeah,
there's two parts to this. There's a lead mechanic MOU, and then there's the job description itself. And this is the job description of the mechanics, only enhanced with what the
Oh,
lead
okay,
mechanics
okay.
would be doing.
so that's understood then?
Yeah.
So he's still a mechanic?
So they're still working, yeah, we're short, we're still short.
Okay, okay, that's all I wanted to make sure.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearable. Anybody else? I had a question. Okay, you got answered. Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Bornzelli?
Thank you, Mayor. How long has he been here?
Tommy's been here, he's coming up on 6 years now.
6, yeah.
Yep.
I know he's a good man.
He's a very good mechanic. He owned his own shop before, so he knows how to do the lead role, if it was to pertain to Tommy getting the job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have an explanation on the lead mechanic position. So all these are recommendation by the review committee, which is your recommendation. So can we make these recommendations and approve them, all these at one time, or do they have to be individually approved? I think these are job descriptions. We can, thank you, Brian. Could lump them into one. So let's talk about these positions. Anybody have any questions, concerns, or comments about any of these job descriptions? We entertain some discussion about that. Otherwise, we'll be looking for a motion moving forward. Counselor Johnson?
Mayor, I see a committee met. Did the individuals who hold these positions have any input into what they felt could be changed or should be changed?
Please, Sherry.
Mayor, Counselor Johnson, yes. They did submit, according to the ASME agreement, contract agreement, they had until February 1st to submit what they felt their job duties or their job description needed to be reevaluated. And usually they took their current job description and filled in or wrote on or scratched out, and then we reviewed it. And we would also review with their department head.
Were any changes made based on what the employees had submitted?
Yes?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Okay, we have a motion to support, or no, not yet. We're still discussing discussion stages. That's right, okay. So any other questions, comments, or concerns about the job descriptions as recommended by staff through the review committee? Counselor Bearable?
Now, if we take a look at the library clerk position, I'm concerned about the work schedule there because it doesn't include any recommendation. The other combination of the clerk media has a Saturday in there. It doesn't for the clerk, because I think we're going to be moving, if we haven't already, to Saturday hours. Can that be added in there that, so it's not just it says it's flexible working hours. A normal 40-hour work week shall consist of 5 days of 8 hours each. Now, what are those days? Can it include Saturday? I'm concerned because we need to cover those Saturdays, and we've talked about that many times.
Hey, Sherry, could you answer
So
Counselor
if
Bearble's question?
there's a shortage to keep our Saturdays open, we might have to pull, clerk in too, if somebody's sick or something.
Would you answer Counselor Bearble's question, please? Thank you.
Counselor Bearable, the language that you see in here is out of their contract. They have to have 5 days, at least 8 hours each. It gives us a right as an employer to give flexible working hours, may require split shifts, which could include being open on Saturdays. Yep. And Scott, he's your rep.
Scott, do you want to come up and just,
Underneath my job description that I have here, Counselor, it states in there what Sherry said. Underneath work schedule, may require split shifts. And then under the contract, that would include the Saturdays.
I'm only talking if you end up with the number of people sick that are supposedly scheduled.
Okay.
Just, you know, those type of things where you might have to
Yep.
cover hours.
Right, it's worded in there that we'd be able to
Okay,
cover everything.
okay, thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Okay, anybody else have any other questions, concerns, or comments regarding the job descriptions as being proposed by our staff? Counselor Freely.
I should have done the math already, but I haven't, and I don't know if anybody can quickly for me, but a $2 increase to an hourly employee is what percentage of increase is typically what I've been,
You have 2,080 hours in a year, so $2 an hour will give you about 4,000.
but percentage-wise, like
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
a 0.25% increase on their wages or a 0.4, a 4%? I mean, that's what I look at, like, or is it a 10%? I don't know, like, what's the math on that? I mean,
And I-
typically, like, when you're doing contractual, you know, they're vying for a 2% increase on their wages, or a 1.5, or a 4%, or whatever. What would this amount to approximately?
Don't have the percentage right hand, but I will get it for you. But
would-
to
What's the
clarify,
current,
And I guess I would ask Scott, like, then, like, when you make these kinds of, I wouldn't call them arbitrary, but I mean, there's reasons behind making these percentages for these responsibilities these people have. Is this aligned with, like, acceptance with rank and file? Like, you have 50% for the heavy equipment operators, $2 for so-and-so and such, but none for the others, but everybody's in agreement with that, with the union, or
Correct.
is it
yes.
just a committee that does
It's,
that?
the committee does it at that particular
And then
time.
presents that to the rank and file who approve those, or not necessarily?
No, we don't have to do that, because everybody has the right to reevaluate their job description, and if they feel that their job description has changed dramatically, that's when they would come in and ask for a pay increase. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my concern would be a little bit is like, are we setting a precedence of, you know, like a 4% increase for positions that are, okay, and that's my concern, you know, like when I was hearing the other day about the potential consolidation of the school districts, you know, the Evelyn Gilbert School District settled at like 4 and 4, Virginia was like 0.25, 0.25, or 0.2, whatever. You know, my concern is like, are you setting a precedence by not setting a percentage maximum for increases per contractual negotiations, I guess, is.
Sherry?
Mayor, Counselor Philip, I'm glad you pointed that out. It isn't based on a percentage. What we did is in the ASME contract, there's a $2 an hour wage for team leaders, or someone that just steps up a little bit more as a leader. We felt this was, the lead mechanic should be on the same plane as a team leader, so we took that $2 and applied it to that.
Okay, and that was the same that was given to Ed when he was, okay, all right, so we're just moving forward with what we've done in the past for that kind of additional responsibility. All right, thank you.
And I think to clarify, if you would, Sherry, for all of us, is that these lead worker positions we had before, we don't have them anymore.
No.
So they were, isn't a contract for the lead worker position. Ed had that lead worker position before he's promoted to the Department of Public Works Director. And so that left, it's still in the contract language, but we have no team leaders. We had 2 right before, or was there 3?
We still have team leaders that work, you know what I'm saying, but they're not underneath a $2 increase. This is a
Right.
increase pertaining to his duties as a lead team leader, I guess you want to call it, but we're not calling it that. We're just calling it a lead mechanic because he's overseeing everything in the shop. We're a team leader when Ed is gone per se, or they're doing call-outs, that pertains to all public works. You know. The team mechanic does to a point. The team leaders do also to a point, but the other 2 that we're requesting or would like a raise for, that's just something that we negotiated on the committee as a whole. Them 2 positions there aren't pertaining to the same MOU as we're doing for the lead mechanic.
And this will be for the contractual years for the next 2 years or 4 years, or?
On for as long as we work here is how this is going to come about.
As long as we have that position.
Yes,
If
correct.
approved.
Yes, correct.
So these contracts are renegotiated how often then? Just
Every 3 years.
every 3 years? And so I guess what I'm saying is like this year, we may be able to afford within our budget a $2 increase for these lead positions, but what if we run into financial hardship 3 years down the road? Are we going to be potentially, have we set a precedence whereby now, when we're negotiating, they're gonna seek maybe $3 per hour when we can only afford $1 per hour, is what I'm looking at. It's like, keeping it equitable to what we did in the past is reasonable, I understand that, but I think we have to look towards the future too, in terms of like what we'll be able to afford as time goes on, if that makes any sense.
Mayor?
Sherry?
Counselor Freeland, I do appreciate your concern there, and don't take offense, Scott, but, when negotiations come around, we look at the budget, and we look at forecasted budget, and we're pretty transparent with the unions. This is what we can afford, and if we have to, in the past, we've asked for a zero increase or
And that's what I'm
freeze.
getting at. In the past, when I was involved with school district negotiations, there were multiple years where we had to settle for 0 and 0 because of the financial status of the district, for example. And I just hope that the rank and file understands that that potential exists with the hardships that we face with financial resources, so just.
Correct, yeah.
But in this regard, I'm fully in favor of what the committee has recommended.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Freely. So we have the issues, I think, addressed with respect to the lead mechanic. We've had a question answered with respect to the job description of the clerk about the shift changes and the assignment of shifts, whether split or otherwise. Is there any other questions or concerns or comments about any other job description? If not, seeing none, I would ask to entertain a motion that we approve the recommendations of the review committee for these A through H, which is accounting clerk number 3, lead mechanic, heavy equipment operator, library maintenance / clerk, library clerk / media, library clerk, park and rec positions, and the building maintenance repair position. So
I'll make a motion to approve those committee recommendations.
moved by Councillor Freely to approve. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councillor Barnzell. I just promised myself I wouldn't do that again, but Councillor Baraboo, thank you. Is there any further
Carl,
discussion?
Carl,
No offense taken?
No, Carl and I can just switch names here, right, Carl?
Okay. Well, what do you think about that, Councillor Baraboo? Okay, all right. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to, what's that? Yeah, so this is the next one. This is item 12, the letter of understanding, which is an MOU with ASME for the lead mechanic position to be added to the contract as a memorandum of understanding. I would need a motion to approve that. Moved by Councillor Freely. Is there support? Support by Councillor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Item 13, approve the resolution for hire. Single role paramedic Sanja Lanta. This is a request by a replacement for a single role paramedic as we move forward with some resignations and replacements. So do we need to take these individually for hire? I think we do. So we're looking for an approval to adopt a resolution to hire 13A, single role paramedic Sanja Lanta as proposed and recommended by our fire chief and our staff.
Moved.
I'll move the resolution to hire a single role paramedic.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Sherry?
There's a little error there. He is an EMT, not a paramedic.
Okay, please come forward. Let's clarify before we move forward here. Okay, is this a paramedic or an EMT?
Sanja is a paramedic. Andrew Carlson's an EMT.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
I will amend my motion.
Okay, so the motion still is a single paramedic for Sanja Lanta, right? That is the motion for the paramedic. So that will stand and the support will stand. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. So 13B is the change, where in your packet it says single role paramedic Andrew Carlson. It should be single role EMT. Is that correct, Chief? Okay, so this would be an EMT for Andrew Carlson, not a paramedic. So That's the, we'll make sure that's reflected in the minutes. So we're actually looking for a motion to approve singer role EMT position to Andrew Carlson as recommended. Counselor Beyondich? Motion by Counselor Beyondich, is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Any further discussion? Sherry, do you have something that you need to clarify here? We good? Okay, very good, thank you. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. And item 13C, which is a patrol officer, John Hodgkins. We lost a really good police officer to another agency, so this is to replace that patrol officer that we lost. So it was recommended by staff to approve a resolution to hire a patrol officer for the police department, Mr. John Hodgkins, Officer John Hodgkins. Do I have a motion? Motion by Counselor Beyondich to approve that appointment. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Hang on a second. Fine. We're hiring, that based on, yep, that's fine. We're good. Okay, so other items of concern is item 15, was review the proposed ordinance changes for City Code Chapter 11 and 12. As you all may recall, that this is for the zoning ordinances that are woefully outdated and need to be moved forward. Councilor Beyondich, did you have something?
Back to number 14.
Oh, I missed that. I apologize. Thank you very much. Thank you for the clarification. Let's move back to item number 14, which is approve the travel request for Nick Grivna to attend the K-9 narcotics training with McDonough, March 19th through the 20th in Lower Sioux Police Department. There is no cost for this training. Thank you for pointing that out, Councilor Beyondich.
I'll move.
Move to approve by Councilor Beyondich. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Other items of concern, item 15 is review the proposed ordinance changes for City Code Chapter 11 and 12. Now, we're talking about the zoning ordinance. We are woefully outdated, and we're looking for looking at the proposed changes with respect to this. They are lengthy and significant, so we can review them. Don't necessarily have to make a motion to approve at this point in time unless you're comfortable with doing so. I reviewed them rather painstakingly, but I think the changes are recommended, and I think they're reasonable and prudent. So anybody have any questions or comments or concerns about that? Councilor Freely?
Is there a synopsis or a summary that could be provided to us with regard to that, or is that just?
I think we can do that, yeah. We have we're reviewing them now. We don't have to make an motion to approve at this point in time, but it's just to review the recommended changes. Did you have anything else that you could add to that, Chris?
That's what came out of the document provided in your packet is what came out of the planning and zoning meetings, several of them. So that is his synopsis, his summary of what he's suggesting be changed in our city code on those.
We could continue to review this, get familiar with the changes that are recommended from planning and zoning, and bring it back to the next committee of whole meeting for further discussion and approval for the following council meeting, if that was more reasonable. Councilor Johnson?
Where is that synopsis?
Yeah, I don't see
Which, in the most current update, we go from number 12, letter of memorandum of understanding, to number 16. In the attached documents, I did not see a synopsis of the proposed ordinance changes.
I printed them out, so I guess, go ahead.
Make sure you guys all get it in your email. I thought it was part of the packet
Thank you, Chris.
in there.
Okay, so let's get that synopsis as requested by Councilor Freely, so we can formally review. Councilor Beyondich?
Should I make a motion to wait on this until we have the information and vote on it
Sure, you can make a
at a
motion.
later date?
What are they in reference to, Chapter 11 and 12 City Code ordinances?
Zoning.
Zoning, and specific to, like,
Well, basically all the zoning laws that we have under the old chapter.
there's recommended changes to that then?
Recommendations to the entire zoning ordinances, yeah.
Would make it, for example, more stringent to acquire a variance, for example, or a building permit, or, I mean, I didn't see the information for which I'm,
Let's see if Bill can answer a little bit of that for you, Counselor Freely.
just some kind of a summary or
Anything,
synopsis.
just for us to continue to look forward to as we move forward with the review process for our planning and zoning changes in the ordinances?
Yeah, sorry, I was on the phone, so I had to hurry up and hang up and get over here. But basically, this is his, Mr. Costa's review of Chapter 11 and 12. He's been doing now for the last couple of months with input from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Britt had initially scheduled a meeting, I believe it was April 8th, for a public hearing down at the Miners, for him to come up, present his findings. Pretty much what you're looking at is Chapter 11, 12, 1986 document. It's well outdated. It's pretty much has to be rewritten in its entirety. And it was just basically of his summary of what he saw as problems with it. So
Okay,
once
so-
you take a look at this document, basically you're going to have a public hearing down at the Miners with the people for input on what they'd like to see, what changes, all the way from definitions to actually how we go through the process. And then that'll be decided upon. And then his second part of his contract with the city will be to help us rewrite those two chapters.
Okay, Counselor Freely.
And this was based on like a annual review or an every 3-year review, 10-year review, or 30-year review?
I was going to say about a 35-year review.
And what prompted that then? Was it?
It was just so antiquated. We all knew it was. We started this process initially back in 1997 when we did our first comp plan for the city. And that fizzled out for whatever reasons over the years. And now that the new comprehensive plan was just adopted here a couple of years ago, now we're going to try to get it to reflect the new plan.
Okay, and provide us potential for leniency towards development potentially, or not necessarily leniency, but like accessibility?
Just rules towards development and what the council and what the public would like to see in that chapter. I mean, right now it's a very cumbersome.
But it's relative to commercial and residential?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Bearable?
Bill, as long as you're there and we don't have this document in our packet at this point, was there any discussion, because it's been talked about multiple dwelling zoning restrictions so they can't continue to feed out into our big residential areas, restricting the zoning to certain areas of the community like other towns have done? Was there anything that was discussed? Because if there isn't, I'm very uncomfortable with that not being part of the discussion.
That was part of Mr. Cost's recommendations. We're looking at changing zoning around town. I mean, currently we have 5 residential districts. It'll come up with a different of that. I know for when my last I read of it, right now we have 2 industrial districts. We'll be looking at 3 or 4 and a couple of different business districts. So yeah, we're going to look at densities. Right now we refer every two as a single family, 2-family, 3-4 family. It'll be more in the density of how many families we allow per acre. So let's say on a typical resident lot, it'll be geared towards that and not just the definition of a family. Because the definition of the family is so vague and so different to different people.
So what you're telling me that people that may pick up these cheap properties all over Virginia, since relatives don't, when members pass away, they'll still be able to do all kinds of rental and garbage like this that's going on in this community?
No,
Or
I'm
are we gonna restrict it to between, say, such and such avenues or wherever?
No, well, our districts will be redrawn.
Okay.
And such, how we decide and how many we decide to let be there will be the process of the public hearing of the public input and the councilors' ultimately decision and Mr. Costa's recommendations.
Okay, because that's one of the biggest complaints I've been getting from residents is all the particular inundation of rental properties within residential areas.
Well, the actual rental properties, once you get into your rental code, I think will be more towards that specific, Charlie. How we go about licensing and allow licensing of that. This more has to do with actual land use and how it's dispersed.
Okay, so this discussion can take place with more information instead of speculation about what does this say, what does that say, because we don't have anything before us. So we're asking for our staff to provide us with a synopsis that was given to us by recommendations of planning and zoning through your attendance moving forward. So as the public hearing is scheduled for the April the 8th, and we're going to state that schedule of having that public hearing on April 8th, then we need to have the synopsis by our staff sent to us, as soon as possible, so we can at least discuss it moving forward, so we're better informed of what's going on. So what you just explained to us is part of the synopsis that was recommended through planning and zoning and Costas from SCH, who also put together a comprehensive plan. So with that synopsis for us to consider, we'll be better informed to make a decision and ask more specific questions with respect to how these zoning ordinances are going to be applied. Does that make sense?
Can I just ask?
Yes, Councilor Freely.
And I'll try and be brief, but like, for example, let's say grandfathering someone in, for example, if they built on a 25-foot lot, for example, and they have a dilapidated garage and they wanted to tear that down and build new. I've heard somewhere we are not allowing new construction on 25-foot lots for that kind. So I'm just wondering, because we're such an old community and so many homes were built on 25-foot lots, garages are dilapidated, if someone were intending to repair or replace something that was dilapidated on that, would they be grandfathered to be allowed to build that in this new ordinance? Potentially is what I'm looking at. We need to keep that in mind, because there's people that have property that's limiting to what our new expectations would be with regard to what they can place on that lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'll all be brought up during the process of the input and our final decision. 25-foot lots are big challenges in the city, and you're right. I mean, and that's part of the cumbersome part of it. I mean, you bring up a garage. I mean, back then, when a garage was built, it was 12 feet by 20, and that's your Model T felt was in there or whatever. Now, everybody wants a 24 or 26. But, I mean, we do allow them to build a garage on a 25-foot lot. It's just there's multifaceted questions we have to have answered before it can be. I mean, is there steam that they can't build over? What's right next door? There's all kinds of questions, but that's all going to come out in this public process. And again, Mr. Koss coming with recommendations on how we can handle those problems.
And we will likely not make any decision until after the public hearing, moving forward, of how we're going to do it. We have to get input from them and what we want to do. We have to make a decision. Right now, we're in the review process. As April 8th comes, we'll still be in the review process, right?
Information gathering now.
Right.
I mean,
Very
that's
good.
what the public hearing is going to bring in, all these different questions, and then basically you put it all in that pot, and Mr. Kosk will start thinking about it, because that's what he specializes in, and come back with some recommendations for the community.
So we'll need that information that you can provide, Chris, on that synopsis that we're all looking for in our packet. Yes. Very good, thank you. Thank you, Bill.
All right.
Anything else from the council? We've taken a look at it. We've directed staff to provide this information for us. Councilor Barnzelli, did you have something? I can't see your lights.
Mayor. Councilor Baraboo, you remember on 4th Street South in the 300 block, they wanted to the house was demolished, and the next door neighbor wanted to put a garage there on a 25-foot lot. They came to you guys, planning and zoning. And then there was one in Ridgewood. It wasn't 2 years ago that we had discussion about, because the house or the garage that the guy wanted to build, the rainwater was going to run into his garage. You remember that, Councilor Baraboo? And I don't know what happened.
That garage was built.
That garage was built, yeah.
With some requirements for deferring of that water. Part of the old, yeah, so.
So it goes to planning and zoning and you guys, then east side? Because we have a ordinance, don't we, 25-foot lot, you can't build something on it.
Councilor Barnzelli, it's not so much a 20-foot lot you can't build on. Through our ordinance, we establish a size of a lot and setbacks requirements to buildings. If they want to vary from that, they have to file with planning and zoning. We have a public hearing, and then the planning and zoning decides on if those variants from the setbacks are worthy of the project. So, I mean, for example, in a 25-foot lot, in most parts of the town, it's a 5-foot yard setback on each side. That only leaves you with 15 feet of buildable space. But there's other things that you got to consider too, that the building code and what that allows, and so we have to bring that all into part of that process. So it's not yes or no. There's a couple of different arms moving here to get to the end.
It could be up to the neighbors even to approve this.
Again, it's a planning and zoning, it's a variance from them. They are sent notice of it. They are given, the applicant is given a waiver for the neighbor to sign if they're for it or against it or whatever, why it counts in their consideration. You are getting the variance from the city and not the neighbor.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll look for that information forthcoming for all of us to take a look at that synopsis so we can review and discuss, and like you indicated, Bill, it's information gathering, not only now for us to be able to have some information prior to that public hearing so we can put some input in. And so all these things that we discussed today, there'll probably be some additional questions we have as we all review this synopsis that was proffered by Costas and the committee. So thank you. Anything else? Anybody has on this particular subject? Bill,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, item number 16 is authorize the airport entitlement transfer agreement, and I'm going to refer this over to to Chris. She'll be able to explain this process, how it works on an annual basis. Chris?
Each year, airports can receive funding, entitlement funding, that can be used towards certain capital improvement projects. So this year, we don't have anything that ours could be used for, but we still have one that's a borrowed. We borrowed back in 2017 from Tower to go towards our large improvement projects that we're still finishing. So this year, Tower has called and said, we would like ours back a year early. So we have the ability to do that since we're not using the 2020 entitlement. So instead of letting it go back to the FAA, we are doing the paperwork and requesting that it be transferred over to Tower for repayment from when we borrowed from them of their entitlement in 2017.
And then this is an entitlement that comes from the Federal Aviation Administration. You get those entitlements, it's wise to spend them. I think we didn't have the money for our project, so Tower had some entitlements. They transferred over to us. Now we're just repaying back with the entitlements that we have. So, Councilor Johnson.
Move to direct staff to do the necessary paperwork to pay back and use our entitlement to pay back Tower Airport.
And moved by Councilor Johnson to approve the entitlement.
I'll support, Mayor.
Thank you. Supported by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion?
Just one quick.
Councilor Baraboo.
Quick question. I believe, Chris, we have to approve in order to make transfer because of the joint powers agreement, correct?
Correct. City of Virginia and City of Evelyn will each be signing the same document.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 17, we will strike that from the council agenda right now. And the reason for that, unless another councilor wants to go to a closed session, we're still awaiting and anticipating some additional information from Essensa with respect to our process. And we hope to have something, to maybe have a special council meeting with respect to that. But if you prefer to go into closed session, we can certainly do that. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd like us to do 18, and then I would like to go into the short closed session. I have some questions that I'd like to ask.
Sure.
That of our attorney in reference to that.
Thank you. We'll hold number 17 in advance, And move to item 18, the change in the investment policy. Sherry, would you please explain to the council your request?
Thank you, Mayor. In front of you is our investment policy, and the last time it was updated was 2011. And it was brought to my attention, I put the old language in there. On page 2, it struck through. And then the new language is highlighted. You'll see the difference. Oh. Sent it to you. No, I'm sorry. I didn't. There's miscommunication here.
Well, can this wait, or do you need this done right away?
No, I do need it done because we are investing the 18 million.
Okay, would you make copies for everyone so we can talk about that before we go into closed session?
Yes.
Could we do the,
Counselor Beyondich?
I'm sorry, could we do the closed session and then when we open, continue with that last piece?
Well, I think if it would be all right, let's just get this done, and then if we go to, who knows how long we're going to be in closed session and come out to do that one item and then have to adjourn. Would that be okay? All right, let's do that. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chief. We want to take a couple of minutes. Let's pause until, I think Cheryl will be 5 minutes or so. Thank you very much. We have to take a quick break to get some additional information to discuss And item 18, which is change to our investment policy. There's some new language in the policy that's, that Sherry would like to share with us under investments, item H. Sherry?
Yes, I would like, under our financial advisor who's investing the $18 million bonds for the miners' reconstruction, he suggested that we take H out because it's pretty obsolete, and we want to insert the new language, which pretty much says we will be investing in state or local governments rated A or better by a bonding rating service. That means we're looking for their credit, just like everybody else is looking for our credit. We want to make sure we're investing in a healthy investment. Revenue obligations of state or local rated AA or better by National Bonding Service. The other one pretty much limited us to the state of Minnesota and Minnesota municipal obligations. This secures our investments a little better.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. You, Sherry, as the councilors are reviewing the remaining part of this document, everything stays the same except the recommendation to change item H to give us a little bit more latitude in our investment portfolio. Is that correct?
That is correct, thank you.
Thank you. And you're looking for a motion to approve the recommended changes to the investment policy as recommended by yourself and our bond counsel, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
I would move the change in language on item H under investments to the new language as proposed by staff and bond counsel.
I'll support, Mayor.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Bearboot to approve the recommended changes to our investment policy under item H in investments. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearboot.
Just one point. Sherry is here probably around the first time she was hired. We did a similar change to this because we had some problems with interest from banks and stuff, so we moved to a broader space. So this isn't the first time we've done this.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearboot. So any other discussion with respect to this motion? Motion to approve and support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Let's move back up to item number 17, which is review the agreement between Essentia Health and the City of Virginia for the purchase of real property in Virginia. And this portion of the meeting may be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, 13D.05 subdivision 3. So I was looking for motion to close, to recess the council meeting and move to closed session to discuss item 17. Counselor Johnson?
I would move to recess and close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The council meeting is now closed. So we can